I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilor DeMarco did not trip on anything. He had a broken foot yesterday, so please bear with him. Okay. We're going to start tonight. This is an abbreviated agenda. It's a special meeting with specific topics on the agenda. There will be one public comment period. There will be no town manager report. And there were a few other items that I think were not on the agenda because there was no business related to it. We do have a public hearing. This is a public hearing that we had scheduled to have, but just with a problem in advertising, we wanted to make sure we were doing everything properly, so we postponed it until tonight. There's a public hearing to There's a public hearing that Town Council appropriate from the Water Sewer Capital Stabilization Fund the amount of $174,062 to a new special article in the Water Sewer Fund to provide additional funding for PRV project for which bids came in higher than the amount of the SRF loan or take any other action relative thereto. I will open this up for public comment. I will ask the Chair of Finance to tell us their findings during their subcommittee meeting a couple weeks back.
Yes, so we met before the last meeting. We talked about this motion in length. This is a project that is great for the town. It's going to be great for our infrastructure. We've already put in so much for this project, and once the bids came back, it came back higher than what we wanted or expected or what anyone expected. I mean, that's just the way things are moving right now. But the committee, the Finance Committee did approve and give a positive recommendation, a unanimous positive recommendation for this motion.
And the Water Store Capitalization Fund right now is roughly $523,000. If this motion was to pass, the remaining balance would be about $350,000. I'll ask the town manager. Unfortunately, the DPW director wanted to be here tonight, was unable to make it due to a scheduling conflict, but I'll ask the town manager just to give an overview.
Yes,
If there's anything else to
finance
add.
chair, yeah, there's nothing else to add. We put it out to bid. It came in a little higher than we anticipated, less than we had in previous ones, so we're getting, I think the market's starting to settle down a little bit, which is good news. As you recall, the last one was, upwards of, 800,000 or whatnot. So this is more in line, and I think we're getting closer on the bids. But this one did come in slightly over. The next bid above this was, additional 600,000 or so. So this was definitely the low bidder, and, through the bid process, I would recommend that we move forward.
Is there any comments from the public on this public hearing?
You said one public comment, because there's one for now. And
This
one
is not public comment.
Okay,
This is a
so
public
I just have a
hearing.
question. What's the project? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Town manager.
It's the PRV project. It's the pump station for the sewer. Yeah, one of the pump stations needs to be upgraded.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions on the council? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Public comment. Yes.
Vasily Malleus, Precinct 5. I have two things to bring up. I think the council needs to revisit the recommendations from the Ordinance and Review Committee regarding the number of counselors that we have in front of us today. One thing that I've noticed throughout the last couple of years is that we really don't have a competitive market for candidates running for precincts. And there are times where we are stuck with one candidate, and that is all we get. So I would suggest that the council look at that and look to minimize the amount of counselors, possibly looking at making everyone a counselor at large with the town council president. One comparison is that the school committee has X amount of people. I believe there are 3 positions, and if there are 5 candidates, well, they take the top 3 best candidates that the town voted on. And it's not just based off of what precinct or et cetera. It's a whole. I understand that there is thought against it, where you're not having representation from here or there. But you know what? If we look at it as a whole, we should be doing what's best for the town. not based just off of what precinct you live in, but we need to look at it as a whole. So I would ask you that you please do relook at that and looking at minimizing the number of councilors that are on the committee. I'd also like to just mention that the bend on Pleasant Street now has lights for when you come around that turn to try and slow down traffic, keep it up. I really do think it is going to help slow down the number of people that are flying down Pleasant Street. I would just like to see the possibility of crosswalk signs, the ones that you click and that flash, because there are several times that I do see children trying to cross that street and no one is stopping. And I believe, at least off of Pleasant Street, you could hit it off of Somerset, Cottage Park, Bartlett, and Woodside. And that would be a great way for us to also promote more walking from the residential areas down to the center. But keep up the good work with TSAC, and you guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Yes.
Todd Sacco, Precinct 2. Just a couple of things. First, I'm pleased to see that there's some discussion about a potential new firehouse on the agenda. I think that's long overdue. For the councilors, I'd like to just add some things for you guys to consider. One important thing that I've learned a little bit about this thing called transport billing revenue. This just came to me the other day from one of the other retired firefighters, and so I did some digging. If you want to talk to someone, you should talk to Chief Robert Moran in Barnstable. Apparently, he's an expert at it, and he's collecting significant dollars that are helping to offset the cost of the fire service in general. So, something to think about there. I was also happy to see that on the agenda tonight, there's going to be some discussion, at least I hope some discussion about Rule 11, decorum. From a 30,000-foot view, there's been some alarming things to me with regards to the decorum of this council, not just this particular one, but in years past too. And we've kind of let things get sloppy and messy. There's consistent lateness, there's consistent missing, there's just a lot of lack of care about the position in general. And I understand it's voluntary, you're getting peanuts money, and that's why I pushed for 2 years, so you could just give it a try and bail you 2 years out, but we didn't win that fight. Anyway, with regards to the rules, I want to start with 10C. I'd like to give you a little input. If you're going to consider the council rules, you should consider all of them. In particular, 10C, meetings of committees may be called by the chairperson or upon written request, yada yada. It speaks to the town council keeping records of proceedings. I think all committees, councils, subcommittees should be zoomed and recorded for posterity, for accuracy, for our ADA folks so that who can't get here, so people can watch it at their leisure. Perhaps we'll get more involvement if we do that. Rule 11A, 2, discussion shall be centered on issues at hand, not on individuals. This needs to be re-examined. We have had several issues recently that the people here that are about to hear about this for the first time. We have a town employee who is libeling and slandering a candidate for councilor with nobody talking about it. We have a Board of Health chairman who is on a personal vendetta.
We're not talking about any individuals at this meeting.
Well, we're talking about, okay.
We're not talking about any individuals
You need to investigate
during this
this then,
public
because there's inappropriate behavior.
Anything else?
11A3, cell phones, pages, and other such devices shall be silenced during council meetings. I also think laptops, but I understand that these things are necessarily, you're using them. I'm just concerned that, are we getting your full attention here? If you're on the laptop, are you using just something to think about, maybe talk about. I'm not sure if people are doing their work or if they're using it to read the notes and the stuff you get in the packet. Just a thought. Members will address the council as president as Mr. or Ms. I think you definitely know why you need to take a look at that one. And discussion shall be limited to the topic before the council, and extraneous issues shall have no place in the debate. I think this one, basically the other thing I noticed is I think many of you have not read these rules, because we've had extraneous discussions in the past about things that have nothing to do with town politics. So I'm glad you're going to bring this up, and I'm eager to hear the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. I will say that I don't think anybody agree, disagree with positions or such. I don't think one member of this council runs because they don't care. I think everybody cares. We all have differences of opinion. I think several years ago, when technology came into existence, we tried to get away from paper and using more and more and more of it. I like a hard copy. Many others like electronic copies, and I think that's why you see laptops here. That's why we issued laptops to most town employees, to try to save and to help the environment in some way that we can. But, have we been skirt on council rules? I'm sure over the last 17 years, we've missed one or two here and there, not purposefully. I think it's a small town, and you have people that care about each other a lot, and everybody knows everybody, so sometimes we're probably more informal than we should be. But I don't think it's for a lack of caring. I know it's not on my part, and I think I could speak for the other councilors. Any other public comment? Yes. Frank.
Frank Costantino, Precinct 2. Just on the point that Todd mentioned, and just my attempts to be aware of the kinds of things that are going on in this community, the impression is that there's so much going on that residents don't necessarily have the right channels to be able to get informed about different things that are being talked about, discussed, proposed, planned, decided upon. What is it that this council can do to publicize the key topics that are in front of them, or what sources are available besides WCAT, because these meetings are recorded, and how is it that that information can be put forth to the public, whether it's regular notices in the transcript, for example, information that would allow people to access online information about any particular topic that's going on. I think a lot of people aren't aware of how to get to this kind of information. And the kinds of topics that you're deciding that are going to impact the town for a long, long time, and few people have input into what's going on. I think if the council can, through the town manager, can figure out some way to get that information in front of the public by public notices in the paper, and then access to online information as well.
And again, I think you bring up a good point, Frank, and I think that there is a lot of incredibly important stuff that we're going to be looking at over the next several months, and I think it's applaud to the council for taking on these issues and coming back. In terms of, for example, tonight, the main purpose of this meeting is to announce a potential new firehouse. That, the council is limited in its role. We cannot be here and politically say you have to vote for a public safety building or a fire station in this, for instance, but that there will be a committee presented that will meet hopefully 2 to 3 times a week over the next several months, holding public meetings, forums in the auditorium, having notices go out and you have to educate the consumer, right? You have to educate the citizens on not only this project, but as other major projects come up, I think you'll see stuff like that. Can we use the CAT, like you said, the meetings are all on CAT, the meetings are all streamed, the meetings are all in a library that you can get them at any point online. Can we do more and maybe go to a council blog or something at the transcript where we highlight a few issues every week? And I know I'm at town hall and have office hours at a certain time, and I think it's encouraging even to do that for councilors and to have that opportunity to talk to somebody. Sometimes people just don't want to come here and talk in front of the public or, share their thoughts with everybody else, but they like to do it more one-on-one. And maybe that's us having more office hours and stuff like that. But, you bring up a lot of good points. And the good thing about that is there is a lot of exciting, interesting things that are happening in the town. But thank you for your comment.
Just one
Sure.
example, not to interrupt, but at one time, a few years back before COVID, Rob DeMarco had councilors' office hours here in Town Hall. I was the only one to show up during the entire time that he had scheduled to do that.
No, and I know councilors, I know Council Munson, I know other councilors have had, not necessarily office hours maybe, but meeting with a councilor and such, and maybe it's 2 councilors or whatever, but, and they're not widely attended, but I think if you could get 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 people, and like anything else, those 5 or 6 or 8 go tell 2 each, and it's a small town, that's the way things get around, but everybody's lives are so incredibly busy, it's hard, But thank you.
Mr. Constantino, I can tell you that the virtual meetings that I've had have been more attended than the ones in person.
Any other public comment? Yes.
Hi, Carol Meach, Precinct 2. These gentlemen both brought up accessibility, and my husband is disabled at home. And one of the meetings that I'd like to see mandated to have to be online is anything that has to do with public safety and public health. I was watching some of them, and I'm new to kind of finding everything. I'm just trying to, figure out my way. But if there's a way to mandate that either by the town manager or the council, that anything that has to do with public safety or health has to be, Zoomed or something like that when those meetings are live.
I think
that
you
would
bring
be
up a good, and
appreciated.
not only that, handicap accessibility issues and such, anything like that. And, one of the reasons we spent the money, or we got grant for the money to make this room more accessible for video, and we should take advantage of it more, even in subcommittees and such. Minutes are always there, minutes aren't always 100% accurate, but a video is good, and it's a good reference point for somebody to go take a look at.
And I started going back through and looking at minutes of different things, and then sometimes they're
Bless you.
not posted, or sometimes they're not there when a meeting's been held, so then I start looking to try to find things, and I can't, and it's my ignorance, I'm sure. But
Oh, it's not your ignorance.
It's-
Sometimes it's hard to navigate, and I encourage you not to give the town clerk more work, but you feel free to call the town
I'm more-
or to call any of the councilors, and we'll try to help you as best we can, at least navigate to get to where you want to be.
And I'm more than happy to help if you need help, honestly.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You do need help.
Any other public comment?
We have, on Zoom,
Any on Zoom?
yep, Karen. Karen Chavez? Can you unmute?
Hi, it's Karen Chavez, Precinct 2. Can you hear me?
Yes, Karen.
Oh my God, thank God.
We'll wait for that.
Last
I'm
week.
sorry I'm not there, but I had a 4 o'clock meeting at Town Hall today. So I was in the deluge twice, coming and going, so I chose not to be there tonight. I am so glad to see anything about the new fire station on tonight's agenda. I have been asking for this, I don't know for how many years. The happiest night I think I've had in a long time is the night the town manager said, we are no longer in the ferry business. And now tonight to actually be able to talk about a new fire station. Paul Flanagan and I talked about this, I can't tell you for how many years. And you know what, I am just so happy, and please, I wish everybody luck with this, and I just hope that everything goes through like it's supposed to.
Thank you, Karen.
That's it.
All right, committee reports. We did have one committee meeting since our last meeting, Joint Public Health and Safety and Rules and Ordinance, regarding Locust Street and the TSAC recommendations.
Right.
Okay, I'm back on mute.
Thank you.
The committee met jointly, the Rules and Ordinance and the Public Safety Committee, last night to discuss the traffic problem with cars having to back into Revere Street when the street width did not allow the car entering from Revere Street to pass a car coming from the opposite direction. Although the meeting had been discussed by email in advance and the time and date had been confirmed, no other committee members arrived besides Councilor Honan and myself, and we did not have a quorum. We discussed the issue with TSAC head Mike DeLuiso, who attended the meeting, as did Councilor Hannah Belcher. And we reviewed the history of dealing with the issue, but were unable to vote on a motion or recommendation. If the council would like to proceed without a recommendation, it would be appropriate.
Okay, thank you for the report. This has come out of committee. It's still technically in committee if we choose. It is coming out with no recommendation now. This is an issue that's been around for almost 3 years now and has come to TSAC, has come back to the council, and after talking to residents, it's back in TSAC. It came back with the same recommendation or similar recommendations. I think everybody is relatively familiar with it. It does not have a positive nor a negative recommendation. If the council so chooses, it could be discussed and voted on this evening. If the council so chooses, it can be put off. Counselor Aiello.
I'd like to propose that we continue with this item at today's agenda.
Sure.
Second.
Okay, well, that's fine.
The people that didn't attend.
No, you don't have to vote. We're going to continue. So we are going to discuss this issue. We could come to a decision and vote on this, or we could also delay this. I'll open up discussion. Any discussion on this?
I need to recuse myself.
Yes. Vice President Ruggiero, let it be known as recusing himself from the discussion on the Locust Street issue.
Tracy's got-
Councilor Honan first.
I'd like to make a motion to accept TSAC's recommendation of making Locust a one-way.
Second.
And, I'm sorry, Almont a one-way. And I believe Barbara can explain the details of their recommendation. Or Mike DeLuiso might be online. But
If we make it, which is, I thank Councilor Honan for making a recommendation, but I just would like to be specific for the members of the public and such on what the recommendation is, because it's not as simple as, I don't think, just a one-way.
it's not simple.
Mike, can you add a little to this? I know you've worked on this for 3 years, and you have come back, and you and your committee with very worthwhile recommendation, and if you can explain your findings.
I appreciate that, sir. Yeah, I can go over the findings real quick. So I pulled up the original motion from 2020. I can read the motion if you'd like, or leave that to you folks before I discuss it, whichever you prefer.
Yeah, if you could bring up the motion that is before us now, that would be the same.
So
Yes.
the exact motion was to, motion that the town council accept the recommendations of the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee to improve traffic and pedestrian safety on Almont, Cross, and Locust Streets and amend the town ordinances as follows. Amend section 10.24.010 of the town ordinances titled Schedule of One-Way Streets as follows. Insert the following lines into the table. Almont Street from Revere Street to Cross Street from Shirley Street to Locust Street from Cross Street to Revere Street. If Almont Street is added to the table of one-way streets, amend section 10.12.090 titled Right Turns Prohibited at Certain Intersections by deleting section D, stating no vehicle going westerly on Almont Street shall make a right turn onto Revere Street from 7:30 a.m. to 8:15 a.m. from 1:45 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. on school days. Reason for deleting that section, if it's adopted, is because traffic would no longer be flowing in that direction. I do have a map. I don't know if Denise has me able to share my screen or not.
If you could just, and thank you very much for the very concise motion, can you explain in lay terms, which I consider myself and many others here, just so everybody in the audience and watching on CAT would understand the differences in direction on Almont and Locust, if this motion is passed.
Yeah, so I just pulled up the map, which shows, this is a map that we usually have the street widths, and it also combines the one-way recommendations into it. Locust Street from Cross down to Revere varies from 26 feet to 24 feet 6 inches. Almont Street, a continuous 26 feet 8 inches, and Cross Street's 26 feet wide, the whole length of the section we're talking about. Industry standards, as well as our ordinance, require a 10-foot wide travel lane unobstructed. And generally speaking, you're also looking at an 8-foot parking lane. So, given the street widths, if you're talking about a 10-foot wide travel lane in one direction and parking on both sides of the street, that gives you 26 feet. If you wanted to try to have two-way traffic with parking on both sides, you really need a much wider street in order to accommodate it. Things have come to a head on this so much that, from what I've been told, even through the police department, a fist fight broke out at Revere Street and Locust Street one day recently because a car was coming off Locust Street, a car was coming in from Revere Street, nobody wanted to back up. This is mainly an issue during the morning school traffic, but it also becomes an issue at other times during the day. I say this as somebody who at one point lived on Almont Street, at one point lived on Locust Street. Two other members of the committee that, when we were making this recommendation, used to live in this neighborhood, so we were very familiar with the challenges, and we've seen it's only gotten worse over the years, unfortunately, as the areas have gotten more congested. We left the bottom half of the street out of the discussion because it's not as busy, there's not as much traffic down there between Cross Street and Veterans Road. But by doing this traffic pattern, It has Elmont Street going towards Cross as a one-way to prevent cars from coming up Elmont going towards Revere during that morning and then getting stuck because they have nowhere to go. Whereas a car coming off Locust Street in the morning during school traffic, it's past the officer directing traffic, so they can get into Revere Street during stoppage in the traffic flow. It's the only other option is to really look at eliminating parking on one side of the streets, and even then it's technically not wide enough to accommodate two-way traffic if the parking lot remains. So that's why we made these recommendations. We understand it is going to be inconvenient to the neighborhood, and it's going to have some growing pains. But I will also say that I do believe that people will adjust. I went from living on Locust Street, which is a two-way street, to I now live on the corner of two one-way streets. It took me about 2 weeks just to get used to it, and I moved on. And I would just ask that we put safety ahead of the convenience. I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Mike. Before we get into questions, I just want to concur with Councilor Honan. That is the motion you are making. So Councilor Honan has made that motion. It is seconded by Councilor DeMarco. So the motion is on the table, open for discussion. If someone would like to ask Mike a question or within the council, please do. Councilor Flockhart.
I'd like to give you a little history that the TASAC recommendation came to the Rules and Ordinance, I think 3 years ago, and we decided to try not to do this because the neighborhood was upset. We hoped that we could just get people to not park so close to the end of Revere Street so that there would be room for somebody to pull over and let people go by. It hasn't worked out, despite the fact that we did put in signage and markings. They still park way too close to Revere Street, and there's still the problem, as Mike explained, of people not wanting to back up or having to back into Revere Street. So it makes more sense to follow TASAC this time.
Thank you. Councilor DeMarco.
We tried the other way.
Mike, hi. Hey, how many accidents have there been on Locust Street and Almont Street in the past year?
We didn't pull that data up at our most recent discussion. We've actually moved up the TSAC meeting to July to try to get this into the council, and it was a very brief discussion at that second meeting on this in 2023 that this has been talked about ad nauseum, and we stood by the original recommendation. I personally am not aware of any actual accidents. I do know there have been several close calls. I actually witnessed a couple when I was out there taking measurements not that long ago. And then we had the incident with the fist fight of people who didn't want to back up.
Right. No, I've turned down that road myself especially when my kids went to Fort Banks, and you have to drive the loop, and I would always turn on, sometimes going to work, I would turn onto Locust Street to get out of the traffic, which is going the opposite way of the proposal. And, it's just like, somebody's coming in the opposite direction. You just be a friendly neighbor, you pull to the side and you say, come on, you go. That's just my thought.
Yep. And as a council, I think we're trying to be proactive rather than reactive. I don't want to wait for, a bad situation in order to act, and I think that's always been the goal of this council and the TSAC. Councilor Belcher.
Thank you. I think it's clear that the town has made a good faith effort to not inconvenience the people in the neighborhood, and the issue still exists. It's also a safety issue. If a fire truck or an ambulance or something's trying to get down that street, someone's going the other way, you don't want to have to take the time to figure out how to maneuver. I understand it's incredibly inconvenient, but I think the safety of everybody is more important, and it is nice that the town did try to avoid the inconvenience.
Councilor Monson.
I second that notion, and I second the motion, but I just wanted to say, despite the inconvenience to the people on those one-ways, it is improving safety, and it is preserving our limited resource in parking. I'm fully supporting this.
And I will ask, Chief Wiley is here, who's also a member of the TSAC. Do you concur with this?
I do. This has been kicked around for a number of years. it does not, even at the current dimensions, using, as Mike said, engineering standards, it still doesn't fall within one-way traffic with parking on both sides. The last thing we want to do is eliminate parking. It seems a reasonable solution. As someone, I live on a one-way street, and you get used to it. Is it an inconvenience? At times it can be, but you'll get used to it. In the interest of public safety, we strongly advise that the council move in this direction.
Any other discussion from the council?
When, if voted yes, when would this take effect?
Well, it wouldn't take effect at least until our next council meeting, until the minutes are approved, but,
Get signage,
Tell me.
yeah. We have to get the signage up and then, you know, do some education, get some road signs up, things like that.
likely it would be sometime in the middle of
want
August.
this, yeah,
You know, it would be
exactly.
before, I mean, the goal would be before school starts and get people acclimated to the situation. Any further discussion on this? And just to let people know, this is not something that's coming before us tonight and we're voting on this. This has been around for 3 years now. It's come back and forth and we're trying to listen to the public all right, I'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Counsel Honan.
Yes.
Counsel Fusillo.
Yes.
Counsel Munson.
Yes.
Counsel Belcher.
Yes.
Counsel DeMarco.
No.
Counsel Flockhart.
Yes.
Counsel Aiello.
Yes.
Vice President Ruggiero. He abstains. President Lettieri.
Yes.
Somebody needs to tell
Motion passed.
Steve to come back in.
Can we get Stephen back in there?
Council Honan, Steve, go on. Motion to adjourn? Oh, sorry.
You decided to
The
put
prodigal son returns.
All right. All right, so now we will go to old business, and we will go to town council appropriate for water and sewer. Finance, you ready with that motion?
Yep, I am. I move that the town council appropriate from the Water Sewer Capital Stabilization Fund the amount of $174,062 to a new special article in the Water Sewer Fund to provide additional funding for the PRV project for which bids came in higher than the amount of the SRF loan or take any other action thereto. Currently, the fund balance is at $523,854. Amount requested is $174,062. If approved, the amount would be $349,792. This came out of committee with a unanimous positive recommendation.
Thank you. This came out of committee with unanimous recommendation. This was discussed. We had a public hearing on this. Any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Counsel Honan.
Yes.
Counsel Fusillo.
Yes.
Counsel Munson.
Yes.
Counsel Belcher.
Yes.
Counsel DeMarco.
Yes.
Counsel Flockhart.
Yes.
Counsel Aiello.
Yes.
Vice President Ruggiero.
Yes.
President Lettieri.
Yes. Winthrop Beach access, this has been on the agenda for quite a while, and, you know, just to bring the public a little bit up to date, last late spring, early summer, there was a set of stairs at the Locust Street entrance to the Winthrop Beach that was taken down from the DCR. We immediately called and asked them to rectify the situation. Now, it was a set of stairs that was not put up by the DCR, and they had some safety concerns and such. We were told that they would take a look at it. I asked Representative Turco to also call. He called on behalf of the town, and we were told they'd take a look at it. And then we were told that it was too late in the season for them to do much about it, so we started again this spring. Town manager, myself, and Representative Turco called, had some discussions with them concerning our concerns.
Yeah, they give you all that stuff, they give you.
Karen, can you mute, please? So we called with our concerns again. There were not an incredible amount of good access points to the beach that have a nice beach area right there. And we felt this was one that really needed to be done. We continued to try to call. We didn't get a lot of response. We did have one contact at the DCR that I spoke to a couple occasions and didn't get the response we were looking for. The town manager and I decided that it was a good idea to move ahead with the project. We moved ahead. We then DCR was glad to give us a call, and we had discussions with DCR during this time when the town put up the stairs. And DCR called me back one afternoon last weekend, gave us the thumbs up on our attempt to put up the stairs. So we are very pleased with the DCR that they understood our concerns. They appreciated the fact that we took steps to rectify the situation, and they have given their blessings to the stairs. I have since asked for the DCR to give us a maintenance schedule of how their tendencies to take care of the beach. And, the DCR has been good neighbors to us in a lot of stuff, and we thank them for giving their blessing for these stairs. It's a great access point for the citizens. We've received a lot of positive feedback on that, so I think that that's a good thing for Winthrop. It's crazy, we talk about the beach and so much, and we say, oh, Winthrop Beach is technically DCR's. I mean, it's Winthrop property, and this started, I think, back in '78 after the blizzard, and there was just so much destruction down there, and the town just didn't have the ability to maintain it properly and to make the ramifications necessary, and at the time, the MDC took over. And we're in the process now of trying to look at that document, if we could find that document, to see what the responsibilities are on now DCR's point to make sure that that this beach is well maintained and taken care of. So again, I thank the DCR for their cooperation with us. I thank the DPW department for their incredible work in this, and to get us a set of stairs that are very structurally well made and will serve the citizens of Winthrop. So thank you for that, and we could finally take that off the agenda now for a while. Committee appointments, I have several appointments to make. I'm going to wait until the next meeting because there are 2 additional appointments that I was ready to make that didn't get in the packet, and I want to give council the ability to take a look at it, so we will wait until the next meeting for that. It will continue on old business. New business, discussion of August council meeting dates. We are now meeting in August on the 1st and 15th. We have some vacations and such, enabling the town manager and a few councilors, I believe, that might not be able to attend. So if there is a need to look at it, I was looking at either maintaining the 1st and the 15th or going to the 8th and the 15th, if that helps anybody. The reason why I want to make the meeting as soon as possible, because I think it's extremely important that we get ready for fire station in more detail, create a committee, get that done to a point where we could hit the ground running, because we're 8-1 or 8-8 at that point, and the election is 11-7 or change. And going back to Mr. Constantino's comments, we want to have adequate time to make sure we are listening to all the concerns of the citizens and making sure they understand the process and how it's going to go forward. So does anybody have a problem with the 1st and 15th, or would they rather the 8th and 15th? We're good? All right, we're going to keep the dates as they are then for now. Oh, we will keep the dates.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I just wanted to, next week I'll be on vacation, and thankfully the fire chief is going to be covering for me, so he will be in attendance at the meeting in my stead.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and we hope you enjoy your vacation. It's well deserved. Discussion town council rules and procedures, decorum rule 11. I've been, as I think we all do, there's a lot of information between the town charter and the rules and such, and I think slowly as councilors get here, we look at them more, we read them more, we have extra time or whatever the case may be, but there's a couple items in decorum just on the council side that I think it would be appropriate to send to Rules and Ordinance to take a look at in terms of, and just the world has changed, and we're just trying to keep up with the times and such. The days of suit and tie seem to be pretty much gone, but there's also, the concern of being elected bodies of the town and making a good impression and proving ourselves well and worthy of that election. So I will ask for this to go to Rules and Ordinance to take a look at items such as dress code and such. Okay, now, the big reveal, so to speak. We're going to talk about a proposal for a firehouse I've been saying that this has been going on since the 90s, which is 30-plus years. I had somebody tell me today that it was first discussed in the 60s. And unfortunately, I remember that too. But it's, one of my goals when I was elected, fortunate enough to be elected, was to have a proposal before the town, and I was hoping it was within the first year, and now it's within the second year, so it's all good. Municipal government just works slow, but we are set. There has been an incredible amount of discussion on this for many, many years, and I think this is one of the first times that we are at this point where we're going to be able to unveil a presentation. Just to go over the process, we're just announcing our plans after a lot of work and effort. We thank the architectural firm Kessel & Booth that helped us with this project over the past couple of years, actually. There's many obstacles in the way. We looked at different sites. I think we did our due diligence on over almost every aspect imaginable. We did what we consider a really good job. I believe the council, and now it's the public's turn to verify that or not, and we hope to be able to answer all the questions they may have. So what we are proposing tonight is that we will be proposing to build a new firehouse. This firehouse will be placed at the current property of the Wadsworth Building and at Kirby Funeral Home. The current fire station, 2 fire stations, during this process, if this was approved by the town, during the building process will stay. There will not be any disruption in service. There will not be any disruption in facilities. During that probably 12 to 18-month time frame, there will be a lot of demolition and construction and such going on. What the next steps involved will be, we will be naming a firehouse building committee, similar to what we did with the schools, the middle school, the high school, the E.B. Newton and the Cummings. Millerfield, same thing. We will be naming a firehouse committee. That committee... That committee will consist of, and we don't have the exact number yet, it will probably consist of 7 to 9 members with probably 3 alternates on it. It will consist of at least one town council, a town council president or appointee, and potentially another council member, a town manager and appointee, the fire chief or appointee, along with citizen participation. And along with, my thought would also be to have alternates, as we've had on other building committees. The job of the committee over the next 3 months is to educate the town of Winthrop as to this proposal, to let them understand the ramifications, the cost, the benefits, and such of building this proposed building. And I'll propose, there has been, over the past several years, there's been much talk about a public safety building and why did we start with a firehouse. We looked at the need and we thought that the firehouse need, and we will be showing a few pictures. We have a picture of the opening of the Shirley Street Station, which was 1905, which was 118 years ago. We have a picture around the opening of the Pauline Street Station, which I believe was 1882. So the need is there. I don't think there's much question of a need. The question always comes down to cost. And the police station has done a remarkable job with their facility, trying to keep it up to date and such. My thought on this is that if we could start this process and get, in the way we had Kessel & Booth design this building, it's designed in a way that down the road, which I would like to start a process in 8 to 10 years to look at the police station and then rationalize it by the fact that the current middle high school will be coming off the tax rolls. We have designed this building in a way that they can be connected either through an underground tunnel or a walkway or a pass-through on the second floor, going from one building to the next. So we have thought of that and put a lot of consideration into that, and it comes down to cost. This is not a cheap project, as we talked a little bit about construction cost earlier, and when we did one of our motions earlier, but this is going to be upwards of $35 to $40 million. But again, getting back to the work of the committee, the Firehouse Building Committee will be tasked with educating the public on all these intricate issues. And, most people, the first question is cost. And I think, we we're not in the process, we don't have the ability as a council to sit here meeting after meeting to tell you, you have to vote for this, because that's not our job. There will be representation from the council on that committee, but the job of the committee is to really educate the public. Once, eventually, this will be on the November ballot. If this passes in November, we will get final approvals and such. This will go into, and this resulted in a, I discussed the properties that were, being affected. And this resulted in an eminent domain taking, a friendly, I might say, and I will say, a friendly taking that was discussed with the owners of the two properties, and we came to mutual agreement on it. We wanted to be fair, we wanted to be cognizant of the town's expense, and we wanted to be cognizant of the owners of the building's expenses and their futures. So this is a result of a friendly eminent domain taking. Of course, none of it would take place if we did not get approval from the voters come November. If we did get approval, then that Firehouse Building Committee would really step up even more, and then they're in the process of hiring an OPM, hiring an architect, hiring an engineer. We're going to show you a few renderings of what is proposed. That might not be the final building, and we hope that the Firehouse Committee will have a say on that. We were, this company designs Firehouse. We didn't just draw it on a piece of paper and put it out there, but we took into account, which I'll ask the town manager to go even into more detail on the inside and the intricacies, and looking at the turnout stations and the ability to train on site, and the ability to have the Board of Health, the Winthrop Board of Health also there, the Health Department, the ability to think of having ambulance in the building too. So, are there things we forgot? We'll find out over the next 3 months, but we really tried to dot our I's and cross our T's on that. But with that, and as usual, I'm a little long-winded. I'm going to turn it over to the town manager just to show a few pictures, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Council President. We do have a quick PowerPoint. Just the Council President hit a lot of topics, and we'll elaborate on a few more as we go through. Next slide. So this is the Town Council President discussed. This is the fire station back in Shirley Street's fire station back in the early 1900s.
I think that's Pauline.
That's Pauline, and then the Shirley Street's to the right. Sorry, I was just reading off the slide there.
The horse and buggy outfit.
Correct, yeah. Both had horse and buggies. And then, Winthrop's new firehouse, updated back in the 1900s there.
1905.
Yeah, 1905.
Street
So,
station.
so we certainly got our money's worth out of these stations, and certainly past the useful life. Next slide is, way it looks, past versus present, how it started versus how it looks today. So that's obviously the one on the right is today. Next slide. This is the Beach Street, same scenario, how it started on the left versus how it looks today. And it's part of this process too, before we get into the layout, when you go into, when the committee gets set up and we go out, there'll be videos taken. Been through this process several times. We'll go into the fire station, we'll take a look at the basement, take a look at the conditions of these fire stations, so the public really understands what the need is. These buildings are certainly past their useful life, and it's long overdue to get a new fire station in place. So this is the proposed building. As you can see, it's right on Winthrop Street, leading up into Metcalf Square, and on the corner of Pauline. Police station is on the corner. This will encompass both sites that the Council President talked about. Parking there on the left. You can see the apparatus bays. We'll show a little more detail in the next slide. This is the basement layout. There'll be mostly unexcavated spot, but then off to the left there, there'll be space. It's probably tough to read there, but it's a few more spaces for the Health Department, which will be located on the 3rd floor, but they'll also have some meeting space down here. There'll be some fire prevention storage, and then mechanical rooms, elevator rooms, etc. And there's a couple additional restrooms down there as well. Next slide, please. This is the 1st floor layout. As the Council President talked about, this has got a lot of, the 4 full bays here. You've got 2 of the smaller bays for some of the smaller equipment, off to the right-hand side there. What you see on the far left of the bays is 2 spots for 2 ambulances. We've got 2 fire pumpers in there, the ladder truck, and then another fire apparatus there on the right. We've also, got lots of rooms here for the, decontamination rooms, turnout gear, everything we need today for a modern fire station that we currently don't have. Those are all in there. There's also some, the little green room down there is a fitness room for the firefighters, and then we've got just things for EMS storage, bays for the janitors, some additional toilet facilities on that level, along with other things, and then the lobby. Next slide, please. This is the second floor. This will be where most of the fire station, the firefighters will reside. As you can see, we've got individual bedrooms there, and we've also got the kitchen site, their living room set up, and then obviously the corridor, and then the fire pole there located in a small red block there on the lower left-hand side that will allow them to quickly get down to the fire station in the need of a call. The council president talked about training. The mezzanine section there allows for training between setting up ladders, doing different things, and the fire chief can elaborate on that, but we'll be able to utilize training equipment inside the mezzanine there on that as well. Third floor, as we talked about, there's the purple spaces there are for the health department. They will have that space up in the front. It's easily accessible from the elevator. In the back there, it's a conference room, and then the chief, deputy chief, and the captains and lieutenant space in their bunks. And then next slide. This is just a small rendering that the architect came up with, trying to keep in mind that it's in the historic district. Obviously, this will be tweaked. This is just, one, our Kessel and Booses and, Larry Trim and his staff, what they think the building could look like. It does incorporate some stuff. One of the things the council president and I talked about is if, you look in the Wadsworth building, they've got the arch there. Maybe we can incorporate that into the doorway that's sort of tucked in behind that tree, the main entrance, and try to really hit on some of the historical aspects of the buildings around it. Another different angle. It shows the additional smaller apparatus bays there on the left. And then the next slide this is the side. What they tried to bring in is all the way on the right-hand side there. There's some of the wood panels that are on the Wadsworth building. They tried to bring in that architectural design. But again, this can all be tweaked. Think of it like Lego blocks. We know we need all these pieces that have to go into it. This is just one rendering. If this were to be approved at the ballot, the next steps would be, hiring an OPM and then hiring an architect. Maybe it's Kessel and Boose, maybe it's somebody else, but it would go back out to bid. And then that architect and the committee would spend the next, 6-8 months designing the building and coming up with the final product, along with a lot of public input. Next slide. As you can see, these are just some buildings around town, including the Wadsworth building, our new middle high school. I think you can see, some of the details in the building that they showed, you can see a lot of these in the buildings that they picked here, whether it's the FKO building, Wadsworth Town Hall, the new middle high school, E.B. Newton, et cetera, et cetera. So, Kessel and Boose really worked hard on this. We looked at several sites, like the council president talked. All of them, the 2 or 3 we looked at all had eminent domain takings. There's a budget number that they put in there for that. That'll move forward. This site, given the fact that it's a level lot, only 2 parcels that we had to deal with, certainly made it the optimal site, and also being able to do it in phases, do the fire station first, and have the ability to tie in the police station at a later date, and, keep everything so we can, collaborate and keep the buildings connected. So, real happy with the process, excited to, take the next steps. This is where the rubber meets the road. We got to get out and educate the public. We've got to, have those 2 or 3 meetings a week, different locations, different times, so everybody has a chance to come in, ask questions, have input. The makeup of the committee is crucial. I've certainly, council president elaborated on, residents at large, certainly members maybe of the historical committee. Where this is in the historic district, you want to make sure we have some aspects of that in there. So, excited about the process and looking forward to it.
Questions from the council? Councilor Munson.
Thank you, Council President. Our role will be, we obviously have already supported this to this point, but we ethically cannot promote the proposal? Is that?
I think at a council meeting, it's not probably prudent to get on a soapbox about my view on this. In a council meeting, or if you have office hours, you can absolutely, your job is to educate the public. It's the public's job to see if it's the right thing for them or not. Our job is to make sure that they understand all the facts, how much it's gonna cost, why did we choose that location, was there a better location? You know, we're gonna get response from the fire department and their thoughts, obviously, on it, and we have throughout the whole process, but it's our job to educate. You know, it's not my job to tell somebody you have to vote yes or you have to vote no. That's their right, to do that. So it's not our job to, not that we're coercing anybody, but our job is to just lay out the facts and answer the questions the best we can.
Well, without saying much, I will say that the process has been impressive. The due diligence that you've put in and the process of just kind of reviewing all of the things that were needed and all of the alternatives. I feel as though, if you had asked me when I first started as a counselor where this would be, I had no idea it was going to be here. I mean, there was every lot in all of Winthrop was reviewed, to my understanding. So I think that kudos to the whole team that put this together, and I look forward to seeing, as you said, this turning into fruition.
Yeah, and there are pluses and minuses to every lot, and I know even on this lot, people say, and Councilor Ayala was one of the first to bring out, make sure the turning radius is proper and such, and we went back to Kessel and Booth to make sure they had proper turning radius and such, and they came back with the answer that we wanted to hear. Councilor DeMarco, and then we'll go down.
What condition is the Wadsworth building in right now?
You have to ask, I mean.
You have to ask the owner of the
Fine, I mean, there's no
I
violations there.
Well, I was just looking at it, and I'm like, the property, it almost looks like you could wrap it around the wall. It's a historical building. That's the only thing that makes me sad. This is a great proposal, okay? I think.
I want to be clear, it's not an historical building, it's not on the register, it's in a historic district.
Yes.
But the building itself is not historic.
Okay. We talked about the owners being on board with this. What about the tenants? I mean, we all eat Patsy's food. You know, they're building a new church upstairs right now in the Wadsworth building.
You know, that process will play out, but I know we have got, you know, responsible landlords there, and I think that, you know, there's obviously the eminent domain process deals with a lot of that, but yeah, I mean, that'll play out, so.
Okay.
Vice President Ruggiero.
Thank you, Council President. Yeah, so this is just the, you know, the start, the tip of the iceberg, so to speak, but I want to make sure that we do get off on the right start. I know that we're awaiting a committee appointment to sort of handle a lot of the campaigning and the public relations, but so I'm assuming this is going to be on the town website, if it's not already.
Yeah, we'll put this out, it'll be up tomorrow.
And just, you know, if we could kind of keep all these documents in one organized place.
We're going to create a page on the website,
Somewhere
Public
like
Safety
on the home
Buildings, so
screen.
everybody can find everything, and as it evolves, and, you know, take a look at the old documents too, and what we looked at. things like
Exactly,
that.
just so that there's like a one-stop shop for everything related to this right then and there. I think that would go a long way.
Yes, absolutely.
So, thank you.
Councilor Ayala.
I'd like to sort of pick up on Councilor Munson's praise for the process that went through in the examination of multiple sites, and there was no easy natural site, and this really turned out to be, I think, to all of our surprise in some way at the very beginning, the site that really does work. I would just also say a lot of us, I think all of us, went on tours of the current facilities. And if you're a citizen of this town and haven't been in them, they're really, and I don't use this word lightly, disgraceful facilities. They're just, it's amazing that we have such a fine, dedicated department that's as effective as it is in places like that. It's just, I gotta tell you, I've never seen anything like it. So I'm glad we're there. I would just sort of implore a couple of things. Number one, we also have the police station, we also have schools, we have a bunch of facilities, we still got the water system. There is a big backlog in the state of good repair. This has to go first, absolutely has to go first. There will be other debates about next priorities, about what's next and how to fund them and all that, but in my mind, there's no substitute for this one being at the top. And two things related to the historical context. I think, as you acknowledged, there's work to be done. We've got to really make sure this facility shines and represents the best of Winthrop and the best of that district right there. And the other thing, I don't know if it's something that could be assigned to the committee that we're going to appoint, but the current building on Pauline Street is a marvelous historic relic, and if it's going to be saved, if that's the intent to sort of save the building structurally, we ought to understand sort of its liabilities with respect to any environmental contamination, any significant structural assets, because my guess is it's so old that putting it out to market and thinking that someone could go and redevelop it in a way consistent with the values that we want to portray for what should be in that building is going to be very difficult, and maybe some resources could be dedicated in the overall financing to some basic cleanup and stabilization of that building. But that's a hope that would be part of their examination and mission.
One other thing, when I've been involved in this process before, obviously, you know, it comes up in every town, right? What's the reuse gonna be? What are we gonna do with the fire stations? Can we use them to sell them and pace down some of the debt? All those questions will come up. What I would recommend is, you know, have two committees maybe working in tandem. One would be like a fire station reuse committee, and the other one would be the building committee. And then they have different agendas and different missions, and that could be, you know, that would be my
And then they
recommendation.
can come together for the
Yeah,
November
exactly.
vote.
And we're both report back to the council.
Okay.
Councilor Flockhart, did you have, Tracy, Councilor Holman? No. All right, this is the beginning of the process, right? This was an exciting night for this reveal, I guess. A long wait for this for the residents, and it's, again, it's education. I think somebody said it's, a campaign. I think we feel this is, obviously we feel we've got to this position that this is very worthwhile, very needed for the town. I don't consider it as a campaign as much as I consider it an education process. I mean, you just want to give, we want to be able to give, and the committee able to give all the pertinent information, all the truthful information to everybody that asks a question and let them come up with what's best for them. I think that, it's hard, you could argue almost every point. It's hard to argue that we haven't got more than our money's worth on the $5,000 investment for the Shirley Street Station or whatever it was. I think the return on investment was incredible. I think it is important, especially, we have the middle school still there, so I think it is important to have two distinct, separate thoughts going here, but it is important for us to make sure we get on top of a reuse for the other two firehouses in some existence in some way that we want to carry out that mission. I think it's a separate thing, but I think it's something we need to be cognizant of, and I think the people will want to see that. But I think this is an incredible first step. It didn't come with not a lot of work. There was a lot of effort put in. There were Zoom meetings during COVID and such. I mean, we've talked about locations going back well before even the town manager was here with this current project going, from the golf course to the Little League field to the middle school site to the existing sites to different eminent domain takings. But it is amazing when you start a process and don't really think of this end location like this wasn't something, and just with continuous thought and the good work of a lot of people, it just came to fruition, and it worked out, I think, fantastically. But I'm excited to have the people look at this project. I'm excited to be able to answer the questions the public has. And this will be a process that you will hear, back to Mr. Constantino's remarks earlier in the meeting about making sure information gets out. I will be extremely surprised if there's not one person in this town that doesn't know as much about this fire station as most of us know now. So I thank you all for attending. You will hear much more about this, and we will start at the August 1st meeting. And that's all we have tonight. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Councilor Fusillo, second by Councilor DeMarco. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you very much.